Hello, my name is Brenda Byers. I live in Burlington, Ontario in Canada, and I'm an oral storyteller. That means I tell stories by heart. Stories travel around the world, and they're what bring people together and what brings communities together. It is said that when two people share stories, they are never strangers again. I'm going to tell you a folk tale. She's called Clever Gretel. Once upon a time, there was a cook, and her name was Gretel. Gretel wore shoes with red heels, and she used to turn herself around prettily and say, "Aren't I just a gorgeous girl?" Gretel worked for a wealthy man, and one day he told Gretel he was having company for supper. And Gretel was to put on two chickens, two of the best chickens. And Gretel went out into the yard, and she snapped the necks of two chickens. She plucked them, she drew them, and then she put them on a spit, and she started to turn. And she turned the spit over and over. And those chickens started to smell so good. They were roasting just beautifully. And just to make sure, because Gretel always said, a cook should know what it tastes like when she's cooking. And so she took just a smidge off one of the chickens to make sure it was good. And indeed, she was doing a wonderful job. Well, that little smidge of chicken made Gretel hungry, or made Gretel thirsty, and she ran downstairs to the wine cellar. And she poured herself a draught of wine, and she tossed it back, and she came back upstairs. Oh, she thought, wine and chicken go together so much, and she was roasting, and still the guest had not come. And Gretel decided she should try, but look, one of the wings was burnt. Now, isn't that a shame? And the master would be so unhappy. So Gretel ripped the wing off, and she ate it all. Well, and that made her thirsty again, and didn't she have to go back down to the cellar and get another draught of wine? And she gulped that back. "God love you, Gretel," she said to herself. And back upstairs. Oh, and now will you look at that? The chicken has only one wing. Now it's all lopsided, and the guest hasn't come yet. So Gretel swiftly pulled the wing off on the other side, and she gobbled that down as quick as she could. And she watched out the window as she turning the spit, and that made her thirsty. So she ran back downstairs, and she took 2 draughts of wine this time because it was awfully hot. When she got back upstairs, she looked at those chickens. They just didn't look right. One chicken had wings and the other one had no wings. The master would surely notice that, and so she ate the other 2 wings. Boop, just like that. And she looked out the window. There was still no sign of the guest. Well, she began to get worried. Maybe the guest wasn't coming. When her master called in and said, "Gretel, I think that the guest must perhaps have lost his way. I'm going to go and find him." And she called out to her master, "That's a good idea, because these chickens are almost roasted, and it would be a sad thing if they were overdone." And so the master left, and she watched him going down the road. Well, Gretel turned the spit, and it just seemed a shame that these birds were getting done, and there was no one here to eat them. And besides, maybe two birds is just even too many for one supper. So she ate one, all of it, in just no time at all. And she was licking her fingers and sucking on some bones, and she felt so thirsty. So she went back down to the wine cellar and had some more draughts of wine. It took quite a bit now to quench that thirst, and it was so hot. And when she came up, she thought, "Oh no, where one chicken goes, the other one must follow. They cannot be apart. They've been together all this time on the spit." And she ate the other chicken. She sucked the bones. And she thought to herself, well, perhaps it's happened that the master and his guest have gone somewhere else to have their supper. But no, indeed. The next time she looked out the window, there's the master coming up the path, and he's running and running. He came into the house and he called out, "Gretel, Gretel, the guest is on his way. He'll be here any minute. I see the table is well set. You can begin to serve the chicken. Put it out on the platters and get it ready." And in the meantime, in the kitchen, he was sharpening his knife. Yeah, in the dining room, I should say, because Gretel's in the kitchen, of course. He's sharpening his knife, and you can hear the sound of it when there was a knock on the door. And Gretel went to answer it. She was very polite. "Yes, may I help you?" she said. And the man said, "Well, your master is expecting me. I've come for supper." "Oh, shh, 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 shh," she said. "You must be very quiet. He is very angry because you are late, and he has sworn to cut off your ears. Even now, you can hear him sharpening the knives, can you not?" "Oh, yes, yes, I can." She said, "Run. You must run for your life." And the man turned around and he took off down the path. "Master," cried Gretel, "what kind of a guest did you have here? What kind of a guest did you invite? What are your friends like?" And the master said, "Gretel, Gretel, what is it? What's the matter?" And Gretel said, "Well, your guest came to the door. He rushed into the kitchen. He grabbed both chickens under his arms and he left. He ran away." "No," said the master, "not both chickens." "Yes, both." Well, the master ran out the door, wielding the knife, and he chased after his guest, and he called out, "Just one! Just one!" Well, of course, the guest thought he meant just one ear, when the master meant just one chicken. Oh, Gretel watched them go down the road, and she shut the door, and she said, "I think it's time for dessert." That's the story of Clever Gretel. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more. I'll see you soon.